Hello everyone, I am Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. I am a psychic, I am a metaphysical teacher, and I'm here to help you and me and everyone else in the world understand what we're doing here. What does it all mean? And today we're going to be talking about the different aspects, or as the Hindus say, the many faces of God. Keeping in mind that there's only one God. But think about how many cells and atoms and molecules you have in your own physical body, not even mental body, not even spiritual body, but your physical body. And how could God be any less complex than you or me or my cat? So we're going to talk about that today. Now you can find us on you can type in, isn't it supposed to be Linda Bennett, Metaspeak?
It's just metaspeak.com.
Metaspeak.com. This is my producer, Shawnee, on Facebook and Twitter.
So it is Linda Bennett on Facebook and Twitter, and metaspeak.com on the World Wide Web.
Okay, Linda Bennett on Metaspeak and Twitter, and Metaspeak on the World Wide Web. Okay. You think I'm an idiot, but I don't have a computer, so I'm just, winging it here. And our phone number, in case you have questions that you'd like to see featured on the air, or if you would like a personal consultation, is 727-736-4567. You will get the machine at the office, and someone will call you back. And that noise is Princess Gracious Gracie getting ready to join us, and she's scratching on her little post. There she is. Hey, Gracie. And she joins us every week in case you're not a regular viewer. If you're just stumbling upon us, I've been doing this for millions of years, and I have a pretty good handle on everything, but I don't know everything. And I haven't thought of every question. So if you've got questions, if you've got something that's always been bothering you, that's never made sense to you, like why are people atheists? How could they possibly be atheists? How people could possibly belong to a religion. Do cats have souls? Yes. If you have a cat, you know the cat has a soul. So we are going to be covering today the different aspects of God. And I'm going to be accompanied and assisted by Princess Gracious Gracie, who's usually up here, but she checked it out last night, and there's not much room for her. Now you see this huge statue in front of me, and it's not there by mistake, and I'm just really praying I don't knock it over. So, I wanted to explain Rudraksha beads. I'm going to hold these up, and you're going to think they're like little knots. They're not little knots. Think of raisins versus grapes. You know that raisins come from grapes. But if you leave them out and sun dry them, they shrivel up. So this was originally used back in Lemuria and Atlantis. And when we knew things were coming to an end for the last 100 years before each civilization ended, we spread out around the globe and went to different places that had a higher level of spiritual understanding. Everywhere from off the coast of Ireland, which is called High Brasilia, which they have discovered and they're exploring as we speak, to Antarctica, to parts of Italy, to Australia, to the Hawaiian Islands, to the central part of North American oceans. And that means the United States, Greenland, Iceland, parts of Europe. And in Lemuria, it was mostly in the Pacific. So these beads are where the Catholic rosary comes from. And these beads, if they're done properly, are 108 beads. And we're going to do in the next program karma and a little bit of the tarot. And I will be explaining that to you. Now, many years ago when I taught my first tarot class, you have to understand numerology and symbols before you can understand the tarot. And I'll give you the expression of the people in the audience that night I was teaching, about a half an hour in, with drool coming out of the sides of their mouths because they were not getting it. I taught 3 of those classes. Finally, the light bulbs went on their eyes. And everything is related. And if you look at the number 108, 1, 0 means nothing, and 8 equals 9. 9 in the tarot is the hermit, the keeper of the occult, the hidden knowledge, the wisdoms, the ancient truths of the universe. And so therefore, everything in ancient spirituality has importance. They don't just pick a random number and think, oh, what the heck, well, that's the amount of beads I have, I'll string this. Everything has importance. And Rudraksha beads are known to be some of the most sacred beads that you can possibly use. Now, I'm going to tell you that you can use any beads. If you're a Hindu and you happen to have a rosary handy, go ahead and use it. Doesn't matter. God doesn't care. God is just interested in whether or not you're conscious of your spirituality. Are you conscious of praying for the happiness and the joy and the safety of the whole planet? Not just your friends and your loved ones, but for the whole planet. God's interested in how selfless you are, not selfish. So Rudraksha beads, they are always shriveled up like little raisins, and they're always 108 beads. You want to come up here, Gracie? 108 beads. And don't think, oh my gosh, she let her cat sniff her beads. Cats have souls just like we do, only they're pussycat souls. They can be tiger souls, they can be pussycat souls, they can be snow leopard souls, but believe me, they're very smart and very wise. Any of us who have pussycats will tell you that they run rings around dogs. Now, dogs are far more mobile, dogs can do far more things. You're not going to find a cat racing through the snow to find a lost person because they're too little. Think about it. Think about a German Shepherd versus a pussycat. Pussycat is about the size of a German Shepherd's head. How is that going to work? But what they do really well. So now we are going to get started. You have
I have a question.
You have a question coming in.
Here, and they want to know. So those are actually seeds. The Rudraksha's are seeds, right?
Yes, they're seeds, but they're actually bead seeds.
Okay. And then
Ooh,
what do you
you
do
scared
with,
Gracie.
What do you do with the? Sorry, Gracie. What do you
She
do?
insists upon apologies.
What do you do with the beads? Like, do you count your prayers?
Yes, you can count your prayers with them the same way you do a rosary. These came in a straight line. These were a gift from a dear friend, and they were strung on nylon, that plasticky stuff, and they snapped. So I gathered them all off the floor. Fortunately, it happened at home, and I had them brought to a jeweler where they double knotted everything on silk cord. So even if it breaks, they're not all going to go all over the floor. So anything that's going to help you keep count. If you're Chinese and you happen to love your abacus, you can keep count on the abacus. God doesn't care. It's only humans who sweat the small stuff. So these are beads that can be used in place of a rosary, along with a rosary. I also have, which I don't have at the moment, the Hawaiian beads, the Huna beads, which are on my altar at the moment, and I have a Huna bracelet. This is a prayer bracelet also, and you can find these in most metaphysical bookstores or online.
So you're counting your
So you're
prayers.
counting your prayers on the beads. God doesn't care if you say 3 really good prayers as opposed to 50 really bad prayers. 50 really bad prayers are when you're checking your texts as you're reciting whatever you're citing, whether it's Hail Marys, Our Fathers, or Om Tar Tatar Tuara Som. God wants your attention if you're going to bother to pray and to meditate. Now, prayer is when you talk to God and say, are you nuts? This planet is a mess. What's wrong with you? I do that all the time. Or you say, I want to pray for the souls who are confused. I want to pray for the souls who are crossing over. I want to pray for souls who are frightened. I want to pray for the children who have terrible parents and not raising them properly. Whatever it is, I want to pray for the animals across the planet. And you see here in front of me, this is the little nativity that sits in my dining room all year long. I am not a Christian. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Islamic. I'm a yogi. And that means we go to God in all forms. And we love God in all forms. Some yogis just want to go to the light and visualize the whole universe as a beam of light. Great, who cares? Doesn't matter. We're praying to the same energy. And over here is Buddha and Avalokitesvara. and a giant angel, and there's a little baby angel right in the front there. And I don't think you can see Ganesha. I'll have to give Ganesha a little more prominence. There we go. I'll explain Ganesha in a second. I have around Buddha's neck something personal. It was given to me. It's a little pussycat pendant, and Buddha loves pussycats. Buddha loves all animals. And in my last house, I had my Buddha statue on the floor next to a giant rose quartz. And Pinky, who was my gigantic 22-pound God knows what, whether he was a Maine Coon or a Norwegian cat or a Siberian cat, we don't know. He had 3 layers of fur, but he loved cuddling with Buddha. And he rubbed his nose constantly on the rose quartz, which is kind of sharp, never cut himself, and he would snuggle right next to Buddha and just fall asleep. So that's personal for me. You can do a dog if you like. You can do a little bird. You don't have to do anything. You can just have the statue of Buddha. It doesn't matter. God doesn't care. I cannot emphasize that enough. If all you come away with after watching this show is that God doesn't care how you pray and meditate. Meditation is when you listen for the God. So prayer is when you talk to God. Meditation is when God talks to you. And you can say to me, well, I've been meditating for a month and I haven't gotten anything. Well, big deal. Some people meditate for 50 years and get nothing. And then maybe on the 50th day, or she's now playing with something, on the 50th day, you suddenly get enlightenment in some way. Now, that brings up a very important point. Say in your last lifetime, and if you think you only have one lifetime, I'm very sorry for you, but we have many lifetimes. In your last lifetime, you reached a tremendous level of spiritual awakening. Your chakras opened up. Your chakras are your energy centers that match your physical body, and some don't. Some are beyond in the soul. You have 144 chakras. 1, 4, 4. That would be 4 and 4 is 8, 1 is 9. It dwindles down to 6 and then goes down to 3, which is the Trinity, the Father, the Mother, the God, the Son or the daughter, doesn't matter. So when you are thinking about, should I meditate? The answer is yes. I meditated as a child. I would sit and meditate under the lilac bushes. I would meditate up in the weeping willow tree, where I hid from my mother one day when she was trying to kill me. I meditated in the forsythia. I always meditated in nature. I felt so much safer and so much more comfortable in nature. And I never felt comfortable in a church. And I explored all the different religions that were available in New York at the time, and I didn't find one that satisfied my questions. I studied Judaism for about 4 years. I was raised in the Catholic Church, where they learned to hate me because I asked too many questions. And I studied Lutheranism, Methodist. I decided that the Episcopalians were polite Catholics, and Episcopalian is really what is basically English. And what else did I study? There was one other thing. But I didn't find any answers in religion, because religion is man-made. Spirituality is universal, everywhere in the universe. If you think that there's Catholicism on another planet, I have a big mistake to tell you about, and it isn't true. If the Islamics who are busy slaughtering everybody, which we're going to talk about in the next show dealing with karma, think that their religion is on other planets, it's not. And there's going to be a huge hullabaloo when we finally do send people out in space, because I wouldn't send one religious person with them. I'd send all atheists. Atheists get that way. It could be from parental guidance. It could be from a great spiritual disappointment, like a parent dying or a grandparent who is very important to them. And so they think there's no God. Like God is focusing on you at that very moment. Everyone has a path. We're all on a path. And you will notice that some people are on a higher level than others. It doesn't mean that they're not nice people, the ones on a lower spiritual path. It means that they haven't opened their eyes yet. Buddha said, I'm awake. They would ask him, because he was born Siddhartha Gautama, and he was born a prince in the Hindu religion. His father wanted him to take over for him when he died. But He escaped one night. He had a guide take him around town, and he discovered sickness, he discovered suffering, and he discovered death. And his father never wanted him to learn those lessons. So he embarked upon a lifelong mission of discovering what makes happiness and why is there misery and sadness on the planet. So that's Buddha's mission. If you want compassion, if you want understanding, if you want mercy and gentleness and complete blindness to your faults, but finding your good points, that would be Buddha and that would be Avalokitesvara. They are both equal. Remember, this modern history has been written by men. And the expression that people who focus on different wars have is that history is written by the victors. And men have basically been running things since Moses and the gang slaughtered the wealthy Canaanites and took over and decided that they were the ones who were ruling the world because God chose them. God didn't choose anybody. God didn't choose a religion. God didn't choose a hair color, a skin color. God didn't choose an animal, although I bet it would be pussycats. Sorry. Could be butterflies. Could be elephants. Could be giraffes. But God is interested in the kind of soul you are. Now, people who have studied Hinduism and love Hinduism understand something. That it is impossible to understand all of the different personality aspects in one lifetime. And so they say, we'll take 100 lifetimes to learn the different aspects. What's the difference? We're studying God. We're learning about God. We may learn about God in the Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Parvati, Durga, Kali concept, which I will show you. I wrote out at 5 o'clock this morning. What are you doing at 5 o'clock in the morning? I'm up making notes. And it is the cycle of life. Gracie, not now. You're making noise. Mommy's talking. Brahma and Parvati. In Hinduism, there's the duality. As I've showed you before, one God. Male aspect, female aspect, one God. Male aspect, female aspect, one God. So the Hindus understand that. So do the Hunas in Hawaii. So do the Berbers in the mountains of Afghanistan and wherever they have located, because they're trying to run away from the nightmare wars in the Middle East. They're also found in Africa. They're found all through the Sahara. Those are the people who have purple, and they have darkened skin from the purple dye, and they will take you in no matter who you are and give you, unless you're busy shooting at them, and give you protection and give you food and give you water, because they understand that if you're crossing through the desert, everybody deserves a chance. And their spirituality is very close to Huna. Now, we have Northern Africa, and we have way on the other side of the world, Hawaii. How could they be the same? Perhaps we went to both places. And remember, I love the UFO, ancient aliens and aliens among us and all that stuff. But if you get off a plane from Tampa to New York or to Toronto or to France, you're not a UFO. You're somebody who gets off a plane. When we were flying to different parts of the world, when we knew Atlantis was going down, we populated, as I said before, like High Brasilia, which they've discovered and are busy exploring as we speak. They have discovered this landmass off the coast of Ireland that has sunk, and they're discovering it. Like we have 50 miles off Miami, Bimini, sunken Bimini, off Bimini, sunken Bimini, sunken outer regions of Atlantis. There are outer regions of Atlantis all through the Atlantic Ocean. Almost none of the original parts are up. And if they are, they were basically destroyed and rebuilt because of the volcanoes and the earthquakes. So I will hold this up again. We have Parvati and Brahma, and that is the creative aspect of life. Then we turn it to this way, and we have the preservation aspect of life. That's Vishnu and Durga. And then we have Shiva and Kali, which is the destructive part. Now, the ancients knew that a day was not 24 hours. I have it written down here somewhere.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yes,
When you're saying the destructive,
this is my producer. Go ahead.
When you're saying the destructive part,
Yes.
it's just, is it destroying good and evil? What's going on with that? Because destructive sounds so negative.
Not if you understand that the next cycle is creation, which is why I wrote this in a circle. Okay? It goes around and around and around and around continuously like a wheel. When you create something, it is human nature, sadly, to try to muck it up. And I'm not beating up on men, but testosterone can be an ugly thing. Women want consensus, they want to have committees, they want everybody to be participating in the decision-making process, they call the meetings in the family. Men want to conquer and kill and stand on top of the hill with the sword or the gun or the bomb. That is the nature of physicality on this planet, because we haven't risen above the physicality into spirituality, which we had done in Lemuria. And then there were people who dragged the vibration down by doing things like cruel experiments, like taking humans and matching them up with animals, which, for instance, is where we get, what are the ones in Harry Potter, the half horse?
Centaurs.
Centaurs. I can never remember that word for some reason. And other circumstances. You cannot mix animal and human. You cannot do things that are cruel. You cannot do things that are against nature. It ain't the way things are designed to be. I'm Linda Bennett, by the way, and this is Metaphysically Speaking. And you're finding us on the World Wide Web under Metaphysically Speaking, but on Facebook and YouTube, you type in Linda Bennett, metaspeak.com.
Right, the website is actually also metaspeak.com.
You know how confusing this is to me?
Right.
Okay, and the office number is 727-736-4567 if you have questions that you want me to answer for you on the show. Sometimes I'll take a personal question as well if it's not long and drawn out about the history of your family.
We do have a personal question standing
We
by.
do have a personal question standing by, but let me finish this thought. So if you understand that the soul is continuous because it's from the God force, which is what we're going to look at next show in the Tarot, because it's the story of the soul's progression and the cycles and the levels and the numerology. You are going to discover that there's no such thing as destruction of the soul. Animals don't care when they die because they're still alive. They're still in the astral world. They're still bumping into you as you're walking around. You might be bumping into an elephant. You might have an elephant or a giraffe or a rhinoceros following along behind you, and you don't even know it. But if you think of, gee, why am I thinking of elephants? Why am I thinking of rhinoceros? Oh, there's one right next to you. They go wherever they want to go. If you suddenly think of a loved one who's crossed over, they're visiting you. There is no death. There is death of physical form because you can't live to be 1,000, despite what people think about if they love the vampire stories. No physical body can live to be 1,000. And the thing about Methuselah and all that nonsense is just storytelling. Just trying to convince you how important he was. So the soul continues forever. And when you get on the other side, and I've had about 13 near-death experiences, I will tell you that when you get on the other side, you have a full understanding of the universe. Look at these children coming out and having these experiences. There are more and more experiences with children remembering past lives. There's a show on Saturday night. I think it's called The Ghost Inside My Child. Really schmaltzy, stupid name, but it's the child remembering the last lifetime. It's fascinating, and the parents who are helpful, and on last week there was a show where the father was not helpful. He says, I'm a Muslim and we don't believe in past lives. Well, the wife obviously converted for him, and she had a Christian background, and believe it or not, the Catholic Church used to teach reincarnation. And you've heard me say this before, there is no money in reincarnation for a Catholic or any other church, because people say, what am I going to give you money for? I'm part of the God force. I don't need you. But men like groups. They like clubs. They like organizations. They like having a president and a vice president and a chairman and all this other stuff, because they like to be important. And these religions were not started by men. They were not started by women. They were started by men. So we know that when we have the creative cycle, it's a brand new world, so to speak. And then the preservation aspect takes over, and it tries to keep things on a steady pace. But human nature being what it is, and to me, the 7 deadly sins, the worst is greed, because it creates sloth from people who think, well, I'll never get what I want, so therefore I'm just going to lie around. Creates lying. It creates all kinds of other problems. Greed. I want what you got. I'm going to get it. If you're watching The Roosevelts, which is outstanding production, another production by Ken Burns on PBS, you will see that the Roosevelts came from an amazing financial background. And yet they all experienced, Teddy Roosevelt lived for a year out west, and was a cowboy, and was a ranger, and a sheep herder, and a miner, did all kinds of things, and learned about what the rest of the world lived like. Eleanor Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt also found out. And when Franklin Roosevelt got polio, he found out what it was like not to be quite so robust. And he took over a place called Warm Springs in Georgia, I believe it is, and he bought it. He had it designed, he got contributions, and it was for people with polio and other muscle degenerative illnesses. So he gained a sympathy and an empathy for those less fortunate. If all you have is empathy for those less fortunate, that's fabulous. If you have, for instance, a need to share, that would be Ganesha. Because Ganesha is, I'll hold this up. I have a much larger one, but it's almost bigger than I am. So I'm not holding that one up. It's a man's body with an elephant head. Now, obviously, the Hindus know perfectly well there are no men's bodies running around with elephant heads. It's symbolism. It has a representation. It means that man can conquer almost anything. If it stands strong, if it stands for what's good, and if it's kind. And let me see if the little rat is here. The little rat is not on this one. There's no room for the little rat. You will see in other depictions that there's usually a little rat down around Ganesha's feet. And that means even though he's given so much, and he's shared so much with others, and he's given you so much, God's bounty is limitless, and there's even food for the little rat. So if you want to focus on God's aspect of generosity and doing things the right way and the kind way, and asking Ganesha to throw obstacles in your path when you're being a dummy, he'll do that. But don't say, oh, now my plans are ruined. Say, what is Ganesha trying to teach me? What am I supposed to be learning? Then you'll get the answer. Review the last few days of your life, and you'll get the answer. Then you say, thank you, Ganesha. Thank you for helping me and teaching me that I was heading the wrong direction, that I was almost getting greedy, that I was almost going to be disloyal to people who were loyal to me. And that's what the different aspects of God represent. Now, I have, oh wait, no, I want to finish this. Then we'll get to the personal question. This is, first of all, these posters are fabulous. I don't even know who put them out, but where did you get them years ago?
Like in Little India in New York.
Little India. If you have any kind of Indian community where you live, you can go to the different stores and see if they have these posters. And this is Lakshmi, and she is providing prosperity. You will also find that the faces are pretty much the same. That's not by accident. First of all, nobody knows what these people look like. And second of all, the message is one is the other. Each one is the other being, because we are all part of the same God stuff, the same God fog molecules. So it doesn't matter what the face looks like, but you can see her shedding prosperity, and there's two little Ganeshas there, two little elephants, which represent strength and prosperity, and she has her lotus blossoms here, and she has the jewels, and she is amazingly joyful, and she can also be considered Parvati, and she can also be, again, Lakshmi. Lakshmi is Parvati, but she can also be, Lakshmi is Lakshmi, and she can also be Parvati, because in the creative force, there's a great giving. There's a great explosion and expansion of light. So I'm afraid to put this down here, because little four-legged pussycat assistance. This is Durga, and Durga is Vishnu's counterpart of preservation, and she rides a tiger. Sometimes you'll see her riding a lion, but lions were basically hunted out of India. There was a small little pocket of lions somewhere, but mostly she's riding a tiger, and she's busy giving blessings with the conch shell and the trident, which can also be used as a weapon, and the circle of life, and the sword, which is preserving the peace. So she is considered the preservation aspect, the female preservation aspect. And again, her face isn't that much different from Lakshmi, because God doesn't care, and they understand that. What are you grieving about?
No, I think I look like her.
You think, oh, you do look, except for the giant ring on her nose, which was very much part of the custom in those days, and they've gone back to it. The artwork is amazing. The detail is simply incredible. I encourage you to find these on the air. Now, I'm going to show you.
Linda, they're actually on metaspeak.com.
They're on that with the descriptions, right?
Yeah, with the different faces of God.
Now I'm going to show you Hanuman, which people call the monkey god. But he was never a monkey. What this represents is people in two stages. One, when they first came to the planet to test things out, to see if the oxygen, carbon dioxide was a good balance for human life. And many of them died because it wasn't right. And as the balance got better, they left the planet. Either they physically died or they got on a spaceship and left town. You will see up here a female and a male. This is Brahma, and this is Parvati. Is that causing a shine, a reflection? Okay. This is Brahma and this is Parvati overseeing the mission that Hanuman is trying to accomplish. And you will see three figures here in this temple or stupa. And I can't determine who they are because they're too tiny. We have the mating swans, swans mate for life. And we have this very calm, complacent look, because the people who came to test the oxygen level weren't angry. They didn't feel like they were being used as guinea pigs. They were testers. They were serving God in the form of testing for other forms of life. So there's no angry face. It's very calm and peaceful. Think about that the next time you do a favor for somebody else and it's not really convenient for you. Now, this is one aspect of Shiva, sitting there with a cobra around his neck. And this is Nandi, the sacred cow, who also plays a part in Krishna's life. And you see the different emblems and the different symbols that he has here. Always a trident. And on the top of his head, he has an aspect of the God force shooting the truth and the light out. And he's sitting on top of, doesn't really look like looks like a giant pussycat to me, but it's obviously a tiger, because he's displaying the fact that he's had to destroy life to recreate it. This is Kali. This is perhaps one of the most controversial of all, because she's shown with her tongue out. The Maori in New Zealand do that too, and on certain other Polynesian islands. And she is basically taking no prisoners. She basically has evil people's heads strung around her neck. She's holding another one by the scalp. She's stomping on another one. These are the people who have committed the 7 deadly sins, who have been cruel, who have been absolutely remorseless, and they have done nothing but destroy. And you see the people behind there battling each other because she doesn't like war. And you see all these different aspects. This can be very frightening, and it's meant to be frightening because she's trying to scare bad people into doing good things. The interesting thing is, she is often shown as a male. And Shiva statue, in a circle of flames, is shown here as a male, but is often shown as a female, to represent the fact that it doesn't matter if it's male or female, we're all part of the same God force. Exactly the same part. Doesn't matter. So whether she's shown with a giant mustache, which is the male aspect, or whether he is shown as a female, which is usually a pantalooned garment, and breasts, which there are no breasts there, it means the same thing. We have one God. So if you're saying, well, who could remember all this? Hence the different sects, S-E-C-T-S, of Hinduism. Do I like Hinduism? I love Hinduism. I choose to make things simpler. Now, those of you who live in big cities have seen men wearing turbans, and they're usually taxi drivers, and they're the kind of turbans that you just lift off like a hat. Those are Sikhs. They're not Muslims, they're Sikhs. And they are the Hindus who said, once upon a time, I don't know, how long ago were they created, do you know?
No, but they're wrapping them. They're not just taking them off.
Oh, I know, but some are wrapped,
Yeah,
and
most-
some are made for them.
Most of them are
Yeah.
wrapped.
So they are stitched so that it's easy to take off and on. But originally they are wrapped, and they're wrapped customized to custom fit the head. Believe it or not, your head size changes. We've all found people whose heads get bigger during their lives, but that's something else. They decided that it was too complicated to worry about all of the different aspects of God, and just to focus on the one aspect of God, the light, the force. One God, male aspect, female aspect, one God. They're not saying that the other way is wrong. They're saying they're choosing to focus on the one God concept, and the rest will be awakened within them when they need it. I don't have any objections to that. I think it's a great idea. But for people who love God in the way of the creative aspect, great. Focus on that. And when we talked about Shiva looking like a female or a male, here is perfect aspecting of it. This is one figure, and you'll see one half is female, one half is male. Making that point, where it's Brahma and Parvati, or Durga and Vishnu, or Shiva and Kali, it doesn't matter. Because God is both male and female, and in perfection, neither. So, I wish I had a gang here asking questions. Does anybody in the audience have questions about the male-female aspects or the different aspects of God?
We would like to know the name of your website.
The name of my
The
website,
name of your website. Just give us.
metaspeak.com.
That sounds good. One question that I do have is, if those people on that spaceship that were out there to save the world and they're atheists, is it okay that they don't know about this, Linda?
They're not atheists. They're people who have reached a spiritual level of understanding.
You had said that you would like to send out into space if it was the last spaceship.
Oh! You're talking about from the United States.
Yeah, if they were like the last people on the planet.
Okay, and so then what was your crown?
Is
If
it
they were
okay-
the last people on the planet and they were all Jehovah's Witnesses or Muslims or Catholics,
You had said earlier
I'd
that-
send the ship without them.
No, you had said earlier that if you were to send a ship,
Yeah.
you would want them to be atheists, but
Yeah.
good people.
Atheists, agnostics. An atheist is someone who doesn't believe in a higher God. An agnostic says, "Oh, okay, prove it to me. I don't believe, I don't disbelieve, just show me." If you're a religious person, and some people have said to me, "I'm a really good Catholic," and I say that's oxymoronic, because if you're a really good Catholic, you'd be Jewish. And then I have a problem with the Jews as well, because they think they're superior to everybody else. And the Islamics are absolutely positive they're superior to everybody else, even though Islam is supposed to love and honor all peoples of the religions of Abraham, which means Jews, Christians, and Islamics, and they don't. If you've ever read the Quran, it's right there. But then they reserve the right to kill infidels, which is anybody who's not following the Abrahamic religions. So that would mean Buddhists and Hindus and Hawaiians and Polynesians and everybody else around the world, because in their little neck of the woods, they think they're running the universe. I got a flash for them. And when they die, golly whompers, are they getting big surprises. So I would rather send atheists than somebody who says, "I'm a really good Catholic, and I'm going to hand out brochures because I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and I'm a Jew, so everything stops at 5 o'clock on Friday night. And by the way, I'm better than you are. And I'm an Islamic, so I'm going to kill all of you because you are not part of who I am." And the Sunnis and Shias are all Islamics. The Zahudis, who were the people on the top of this mountain recently that we had to rescue, are a group of Muslims who are also what they call pagans, meaning they go back prior to Judaism, prior to recent history, and they look at God in many ways. Also, many of them are probably Zoroastrians. And remember, if you saw the Christmas show last year, the three wise men were followers of Zoroaster, who was about 675 years BC, before Jesus, before Christ. Buddha was about 650 years before Christ, before Jesus. Yeshua, pardon me. And he foretold the coming of different saviors. He was also considered a fire principle. In fact, fire played a huge part in all their ceremonies. And they were followers of astrology. They were followers of cosmology, meaning understanding that the planets and the universe and the galaxies were alive with others. And we had to honor that. And the Islamics don't like them. Now, the fight between the Sunnis and the Shias is one believes that the only legitimate leaders of Islam should be those who came from the loins of Muhammad. The other group believes that the person should be elected. That's what they're fighting about. That's why they hate each other. Does this make sense to you? No. They should be happy with the Zahudis, and there were Coptic Christians with them up on top of that mountain, people who were just tribesmen, a whole collection of people that the Islamics were trying to wipe out, ISIL. I'm so glad they're not calling them ISIS, because Atheist, as I say, or ISIS, as most people say, was part of the creative aspect of ancient Egyptian, Isis and Osiris. So I wonder if they got the irony of the whole thing, calling themselves Isis after a female aspect of God, when they trade about 700,000 people a year, mostly children and women, as sex slaves to get money. Yeah, they're selling their own mothers and sisters and daughters. They're selling their own children to get money for the cause. Imagine how unthrilled God is about that. If you're truly a lover of your people, if you're truly a spiritual being, it would never occur to you, it wouldn't even dawn on you to have slaves. It wouldn't dawn on you to sell members of your family. It wouldn't dawn on you to sell members of your family into sexual slavery. That would be the farthest thing from your mind. You'd want to keep your family safe and sound. By the way, that clock has changed numbers a couple of times. It said 12 something a minute ago. So that means we have another 15 minutes to go.
We have 11 minutes.
11 minutes.
11 minutes.
A minute ago, that flashed 12:15. I know that sounds impossible. Well, I'm projecting ahead.
It's counting down, you know that.
It's counting down. I know that.
Okay.
And so if you're saying to yourself, gee whiz, Hinduism sounds awfully busy to me, fine. And remember, most people just focus on one aspect. They might focus on the creative aspect. Brahma and Parvati, the creative aspect. People at this stage of the game might be focusing on the destructive aspect because we're at the end of an age. As this is all cycling around, sorry about the noise, as this is all cycling around, things are not quite as bad at the beginning of one yuga or one age, but when they're at the downward cycle, like we are at the downward destructive cycle, everything seems to be a nightmare. And if you look around, we have these diseases. We've got Ebola. We've got viruses that they can't identify. We've got viruses and bacteria that don't respond to antibiotics anymore. We have people who think that vaccinations are awful. Vaccinations aren't awful. Mercury is awful. Shame on the drug companies for binding the agents in vaccinations with mercury, because it's cheap. You know why? Nobody wants it. So you have to thank people like Jenny McCarthy and the doctors that she followed for getting the mercury out of the vaccinations. You need to ask your vet, by the way, whether or not the binding agent in the vaccinations your cat and dog are getting have mercury in them. Because a lot of times what they don't use for human safety anymore, they push off on the animals. And my two pussycats ago, Sweetie Pie, had a terrible reaction to shots she got. She got a violent cold and was very sick for weeks. Vet didn't know what to do for her. She finally came out of it. That was the last set of vaccinations she got. She wasn't an outdoor cat anyway. But it depends upon the quality of the vaccination. And there are people who are saying, oh no, I don't need that. My child doesn't need that. Well, they're spreading polio again. They're spreading measles. Whooping cough is popping up. And so when you have a country that's enlightened and you have drug companies you can trust, then you have health and well-being. There are always going to be people who are karmically, which is the next show, karmically going to get an illness. We always have people who are going to suffer because that is the karma of the situation. But we are at the end of the destructive cycle. We are terrorized in this country that Islamics are going to blow everything up. I said to somebody the other night, my psychic feeling is there are more weapons in mosques around the country and the United States and Canada than there are in the armories across the country. armories are where the armed services store their weapons. Yeah, I'm serious. So therefore, and there are also rogue agents who at any time, at their discretion, can blow anything up. Who's joining these organizations from America? Guys who didn't fit in to begin with. Guys who didn't fit into their communities, and instead of finding a thing that they excel at, they'd rather sulk about it. They're ripe for the picking, especially with this English Islamic guy who cut off the heads of several Americans, and I think a Frenchman and a Canadian. He understands the American psyche. And he understands that Americans value life. He understands that Americans value family. And he understands that Americans have empathy. And so do the Canadians. So he knows how to emotionally get to us. He got to go. I'm sorry, he's got to be sent to the universe. And so do the others who are trying to destroy this world, because it's not up to them to destroy the world. It's up to God. God is not going to destroy this world until after the next creative preservation destructive cycle. The Hopi Indians talk about it. I think it's the Apaches who talk about it. The Iroquois talk about it. The Maori talk about it. The Hunas talk about it. All the basic ancient spiritualities around the world talk about it. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. It's not up to any religion. And I've asked God, and this is how I talk to God, would you please get off your fat furry fanny and do something about the bad people on this planet so the good people have a chance to get things better? What are you doing? Who are you sending? And I've asked this question of a bunch of people, and I would like you to email with your answers. Not a religious, but who is a great spiritual leader on this planet you can think of? How about my director down there? Is there anybody you can think of? Oprah. Oprah, no. Oprah violated that gift when she forced President Obama ahead of his time into the presidency. He wasn't ready. So therefore, Oprah, to me, is dead. No. Who do you think of? Who do you think of?
The Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama. The Huna spirituality, the kahunas, who are the priests and priestesses of Huna, are secret and quiet in the mountains. Nobody knows who they are except the people they're working with. Same thing with the Maori teachers. There isn't a great spiritual leader in Judaism. There isn't a great spiritual leader in Protestantism. And I'm not talking about those clowns on TV who are busy trying to convert you and tell you have to be saved. I'm talking about spiritual leaders who are talking about world concepts. The Dalai Lama.
Would he be considered a religious leader, though?
Religion in Buddhism is not considered a religion. It's considered a philosophy, because it's a way of life. It's a way of treating all living things. It's a way of treating yourself with respect and dignity. So even though they call Buddhism as a religion, it's really a world philosophy. After that, who do we have?
Ourselves.
Good answer from my producer, ourselves. Ourselves, we are all part of the God force, and we're all capable of being spiritual leaders of ourselves, of being spiritual leaders of our families, of being spiritual leaders of our communities with others, not trying to whack them over the head so you can be boss, but forming a coalition of people who do good things. Random acts of kindness. Remember that movement about 10 years ago? Why don't we have random acts of kindness today? I've seen some. I've seen some nice things happen. I've done some. I love holding doors for people, especially this one woman who had twins and a, talk about lady, I hope you're going in for birth control. She had twins pushing in a carriage, and she had one screaming 4-year-old gripped by the hand like she was never letting go. And the kid was whining and screaming and past nap time and maybe didn't have lunch, and you just wanted to take the kid and put him in a bag somewhere.
That sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible, but I thought, my God, my head is splitting. I had a barometric pressure headache, which is similar to a migraine, although you can move around with a migraine, you can't move around. I thought, I can't go in this store, but I need my prescription. Oh, I'm going to kill myself. And I raced back to that pharmacy so fast. I didn't think I could go that quickly, especially since my purse weighs 15 pounds. But if you need something, I have it. So therefore, I got to the pharmacy counter. No one was there. God saved me. No one was there, got my script, ran out, and up she came right behind me, and I was leaving. Thank you, God. You can be the spiritual person of your life. You don't really need anybody else. But it's nice to have a Dalai Lama who will remind us about kindness and compassion.
And
Yes.
did you say a prayer for that nice lady and her kids?
I said, honey, to myself, I hope you're getting birth control because you can't handle anymore, and I don't want to see you drowning these children. And, you know, kids get whiny and irritable when they want to be home and they don't want to be here and they're hungry and they want to kiss their teddy bear and their pussycat and their puppy dog. But boy, is it noisy, and does it go through your head, and when you have a blinding headache already, it's miserable. You had a personal question?
Very quickly,
'Cause we have one
our
in-
final minute. Lisa wants to know, because she has a friend who's also psychic, if she is going to have twins, as her other psychic friend has told her.
I do see twins for her. I don't know if it's this pregnancy or the next one.
Now, she is 49 years old.
That's a bad time to be pregnant, ladies. Here's a fact of life. Sperm deteriorates as well as the eggs. I wouldn't have children after the age of 30 to 32. In other words, if I was going to have a child, the last one would be arriving at 32. Because you take too many chances with health problems. And we are just about out of time on this segment. I want to remind you to stay with us. This is Linda Bennett with Metaphysically Speaking. And if you just open up your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you're going to know that God and the angels are always, always with you. Stay with us.